Welcome to the Construction Cash Flow Show, where we explore the stories and strategies behind achieving financial success and overcoming cash flow challenges in the construction industry. Each week, I interview a new guest to discuss their unique story of how they got to where they are now, the challenges they faced, what motivates and inspires them, and the issues affecting cash flow. Join us as we uncover best practices to bring about positive change. And don't forget to rate and subscribe to never miss an episode.
All the mistakes that I made in the past has stood me in good stead for this particular venture, because at the time when you grow a company, one of your main clients goes into liquidation, takes you effectively with them. You sit and think it's the end of the world. You feel you get through the full process of grieving, you feel like a victim, you feel resentment, you feel anger. But ultimately, now when I can reflect on it and I look back, it was probably the best thing that happened to me. I know that sounds weird, but I learned so much from the failure. I always wanted to build a company that made its mark within our industry. Any company will understand the trials and tribulations in managing your cash flow, especially in the construction industry. I always set myself wee milestones, and it's strange because I used to pick a company that I used to admire that done a certain amount of turnover, and I thought, right, that's my next target. I want to be bigger than them.
In this episode, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Billy Stein. Billy is a remarkable entrepreneur in the construction industry who has faced a multitude of challenges throughout his journey. Despite these obstacles, Billy has emerged stronger and more determined and more successful than ever before. Billy shares his experiences of dealing with difficult contractors, getting paid on time, and facing labour and resource issues, while also discussing his personal growth. He emphasises the importance of collaboration and facing challenges head-on, leading him to achieve remarkable success in his business. Despite experiencing setbacks, such as losing his business due to a main contractor going bust, Billy overcame his alcohol addiction to start again from scratch. In just 5 years, he grew his business from 0 to 9 million, a remarkable achievement that demonstrates his dedication and resilience. Billy's story is one of perseverance, determination, and personal growth, inspiring us all to overcome adversity and achieve success. Hi Billy, welcome to the show. I'm so pleased to have you on. How are you doing today?
Yes, very good, thank you.
So Billy, tell us a bit about your story, about the successes, the challenges, and how you got to where you are now.
Started off as an apprentice electrician, served my time with a company that's no longer with us, EJ Steel, who were sold to Sir Alfred McAlpine, then to Carillion. But basically just done the full tradesman route to owning my own business. Started off the usual route that tradesmen seem to take, sole trader. Started getting a wee bit bigger, started getting bigger inquiries, went into the limited company route, and it's kind of just been trial and error to get to where I'm at today. But it's been a tough slog, should we say? But we've got here.
You've done incredibly well to come off the tools as a tradesman to the business that you're running now, and it's seen some incredible growth over the last 5 years. So you've kind of gone from 4 employees, less than 100k turnover, up to over 100 employees and 8.6 million pound turnover in 5 years. Tell
8.9.
us,
Yeah.
yeah, how has that journey been?
To be honest with you, I mean, it's a bit strange because other people from the outside look at me on a daily basis and probably think I'm mad. However, it just seems to be the norm to me now. I've always had ambitions. I wasn't always one of these guys that I could have made quite a reasonable living, just myself, an apprentice, going about doing job to job. I wanted to build something more than that. I felt I had quite a bit to offer, so I always wanted to build a company that made its mark within our industry. So I always set myself wee milestones, and it's strange because I used to pick a company that I used to admire that done certain amount of turnover, and I thought, right, that's my next target. I want to be bigger than them, and it's just kind of snowballed from then. It's not been easy. The full reason of this podcast is cash flow, and any growing company will understand in fact, any company, I don't mean any growing company, any company will understand the trials and tribulations of managing your cash flow, especially in the construction industry, and especially when you're a wee couple of steps down the ladder, as we should say, from the main contractor, etc. So it's been ups, there's been downs, there's been some more downs than what there's been ups, but we are where we are now. Now it's about stabilising for the next year or two, and establishing ourselves around about the £10 million mark within the M&E industry, and then I'm going to grow it again. So it's not been easy. It's been done through a lot of good relationships with my clients and building up that personal relationship with our clients. A lot of repeat custom. We're fortunate that we do get a lot of people that come to us with orders to place, and we very rarely get involved in competitive tenders. So that helps, having the relationships there and having the confidence that the people that you work for, that they're going to pay you, because if you've not got that confidence, you simply just couldn't take the risk of growing as quickly as what we've grown.
How has it changed you? Do you feel you've changed over the course of the last 5 years?
I do, yes. I would say it's quite strange actually, because I had a company in the past that I tried to grow it too fast, and unfortunately it fell for the wayside. One of the main clients that we done work for went into liquidation and effectively took my previous company with them. So this is actually a new company that I formed in 2017. But what's happened this time is all the mistakes that I made in the past has stood me in good stead for this particular venture, because at the time when you grow a company, one of your main clients goes into liquidation, takes you effectively with them, you sit and think it's the end of the world. You feel, you get through the full process of grieving, you feel like a victim, you feel resentment, you feel anger. But ultimately, now when I can reflect on it and I look back, it was probably the best thing that happened to me. I know that sounds weird, but I learned so much for the failure, if you like, because let's be honest, it was a failure, but I've learned so much for that failure that stood me in good stead for now, especially cash flow. The things you learn when I grew so fast the last time, what I know about cash flow now, I'm so anal about cash flow with regards to my company now, with regards to protecting money and making sure that you've got reserve accounts for your employees, etc. So I would say I'm definitely different. I'd say I'm a far better business owner for it, to be honest with you. And the sort of a journey that I'm on at the moment is I'm trying to come away from the tradesman on the tools to being the business leader, if that makes sense. I'm going through some different training programs. One I was in last week where it was I was accepted on the Scale Up program for the Hunter Foundation, and it's all about management, scaling your business up, team building, etc. I'd never done anything like that before. I've never had to do anything like that before, because everything that I've got in my business at the moment is stuff that I've acquired through the years, basically to try and mitigate any mistakes that I'd made in the past. So now I'm sitting in a position where I've realised that we are a £9 million business now. We are whether we like it or not, having to start being a corporate organisation with leadership teams and systems in place. So I would say that in the last 5 years, I've went from that guy that wore all the hats. So I was the estimator, I was the admin person, I was the surveyor, I was the HR, to the person now that I'm trying to take a wee step back and have people within these positions in the organisation to take care of that for me. But it's not easy. It's if anything, although the organisation's bigger, but the problems are still the same. It's just at a sort of a bigger level, and you've now got more people that you're trying to counsel, should we say sometimes. But yeah.
What would be the next milestone for you? You mentioned earlier that I thought was a fantastic example, and I haven't heard it before, but a great example that you gave, that you set yourself targets. You looked at companies that were doing well at the next level that you wanted to go to. Yeah. So what would be your next milestone?
My next milestone, it's actually ironic you mentioned that, because one of the companies that I'd set my targets on, unfortunately for them, they went into liquidation, and I ended up taking on quite a lot of their team. Now that posed its own problems, because when you take on effectively a company and try and amalgamate it into your own company, that brings different sorts of politics and different sorts of headaches, because not everybody's aligned with your vision and your philosophy and your ethos, etc. So that was been quite a bit of a learning curve. But with regards to the next sort of milestones, again, I've not made any secret about it, but I want to try and establish yourselves as not just one of the leading M&E companies in Scotland, but UK wide. So I think the next move for me is probably going to be, after we can get the foundation set, get the team right, and get the systems and the processes absolutely buttoned down, so the blueprint's right, I think moving into England is going to be the next step for us.
So you talked about you wanted, in the early days, you wanted to make a mark, and one of the reasons you went into business. What would you like to change about the construction industry?
How long have we got? To be honest, I think that the culture, to be fair, is changing, but I think there's still a very much a main contractor, subcontractor culture with regards to they're not equal. The main contractor is still very much the big boy, and the subcontractor should fall into line, and that's not right, because each of them need each other equally in an equal amount, in my opinion. The main contractor needs a specialist contractor to deliver their project for them, and the specialist contractor needs the main contractor to give them work and to give them a work stream. As I say, it's getting better, maybe a generational thing that's now moving into the next generation, but collaboration could be a lot better between the main contractor and the subcontractor, and that filters right down through the supply chain. From my perspective, I've been a subcontractor most of all of my life, effectively, and we're now at a size now where we've got supply chain, we've got subcontractors. Sometimes our subcontractors are one-man bands, etc., but the full cash flow thing, it's a trickling, it trickles down the line, unfortunately. So whether people like it or not, that it's not a paid culture, but if the main contractor is not paying their supply chain, that does have a knock-on effect all the way down the line, and that's just a fact, and that's something that I think needs to improve, because the subcontractor gets you in a sort of a catch-22. They certify amounts of money that they think is just, but they always keep a bit back. I gave an example on my LinkedIn the other week with regards to us applying, a contractor applying for a sum, if we take an example, £350,000, and the main contractor certifies £200,000 and thinks, you know what, that's a great sum of money for you, you just can get on with that and keep on going. What they don't appreciate is that's effectively always got them in a deficit on their job, and if they're in a deficit, there will come a point, unless they're using operational cash flow to finance that job, there will come a point when that will affect that subcontractor paying their supply chain. And what will happen then is the main contractor holds money back. That subcontractor can't pay their wholesalers or pay their subcontractors in time, which will then affect the ability to deliver that job. And then the main contractor starts battering the subcontractor over the head, saying you're holding the job up. So it's actually a really, you're caught between a rock and a hard place as the subcontractor, because we're right in the middle of that sandwich, if you like.
Do you think there's anything that could be done to improve that, maybe from a systems perspective? Or you mentioned earlier about collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to put things in place now with regards to the collaboration. Now, I approached one of your biggest clients, actually, and they're very receptive to it. So I think what needs to happen is when applications are made, I think the surveyors need to go out and meet the client. I think there's no point doing applications for your desk and then expecting anything else other than a payment certificate come in for lesser value. Meet the client, go and walk the site with the client, agree there and then how much you're going to apply for and how much he's going to certify. That then allows the business to then manage their cash flow, because they know what they're going to be paid. They're not waiting on any surprises for pay less notices. Even reporting as well with regards to your contract guys' progress reports. We have cameras in the top of hats, and our contract managers walk the site on a weekly basis with effectively a camera on top of their hat. So if there is an instance when the surveyor for the client says, no, that wasn't done in that particular date, well, you can actually now refer back to a video walk round to say that it was done in 360 view videos. But this is all stuff that I'm trying to put in place purely because in the past I've had issues getting paid what I think were due to be paid.
I think you're exactly right. I remember when I started out as a surveyor, we didn't have laptops or computers or even mobile phones. That shows you how old I'm getting. But you used to sit face to face with your opposite QS, whether it was a contractor or client QS, and we used to sit down and go through, and you'd be face to face.
Yeah.
And you'd go through with a pen and paper and you'd agree everything. And if there was a disagreement over particular items, you were sitting there face to face, eyeball to eyeball. And by the time you came out of the meeting, you'd come to an agreement of what you was going to get paid. And exactly as you say, you knew what you was going to get paid when you come out of the meeting. I think it's become too easy for surveyors to hide behind a computer and then just, reduce a payment.
Yeah, but the issue sometimes is something as simple as how something's presented on an application. So whether people like it or not, we are the specialist contractor. Nobody's going to know our trade better than what we do. So when a main contractor surveyor receives our application, unless it's broke down and clearly itemised, there may be something in there that is not particularly clear. So there was an instance in the last few months that we had an item in for, for example, say it was heating pipe work, and the client's QS didn't understand what element of the job that was, so he had cut it thinking, oh no, there's no heating done in section A, for talking's sake. But that heating pipe work was actually an accumulation of all the sections. So when we explained that to him, he was like, right, okay, I didn't understand that. So he certified another 60 or 70% on that particular value. So you're right what you're saying. If the two surveyors was on the job together and they questioned that item, that explanation could have been given at that particular time, and there would have been no need for any disputes or any arguments because they were quite clear on the clarity of that particular item. So that's why it's so important to meet up, get personal relationships built up. And again, if you've got a personal relationship built up with your opposing QS or your opposing client, then if there is an issue that happens, it's quite easy to deal with and it's quite easy to lift the phone and speak about it. Because if you're just going back and forward in emails, it's so frustrating at times to try and get your perspective across. Because let's be honest, if we're applying for £350,000 for talking's sake, that's just an example. That's not a specific instance we're talking about. But if we'd applied for that and somebody's certifying us 200,000, there's no way we're overclaiming by £150,000. So there's something wrong. So you better go out and see them and see what the problem is, because I used the example in LinkedIn. If you're a £10 million business that's making 5% after costs or 6% after costs, that's 50k a month profit. It doesn't sound that much. So by that one certificate, that surveyor has just wiped a quarter of my profits out because he's underpaid us by £150,000. And so there's no company can sustain that. So that's why you need to be working with your clients and trying to get paid for the work you've done. And it's quite easy for a surveyor in the past to just say, take 5% off, pay meantime, pay on account, etc. In my opinion, that's just lazy surveying, because that doesn't constitute a proper payment certificate, pay on account or pay meantime. If you're going to take money off somebody, you need to actually give them a proper reason why you're not certifying that amount of money. So when you receive that certificate and you've had money chopped off you because it's pay 60% meantime or whatever, so well, no, we've claimed 75. Tell me why you're not paying me the other 15%. No, just pay meantime. And that's frustrating from a subcontractor's point of view.
It's right what you say about walking the site. I was a client's QS, and I always used to walk the site with the specialist because, they do know their job in the context of the project much better than you do. And I used to give me a much better understanding of how their systems worked, what they were doing in each space, how they were progressing, what challenges they were up against. And sometimes there's design around the interfaces that you don't see, that until somebody takes you on site and says, look, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is what's been designed, and these are the challenges that it's raised. And then as a client's QS, you get a much better picture of what the value is that's going into the job.
Yeah. I mean, you're right what you're saying. It's fine because main contractors will say they've walked the site with their site supervisor, their site manager. But with all due respect to the site manager or the site supervisor, they do not know how to install our services. So it's easy for a prime example is from an electrical point of view. Somebody sees a socket on one wall and thinks to put that socket on the next wall, it's just a case of taking that faceplate off and moving it across. Well, that's not quite factual, because there's quite a lot of work goes on and actually behind the scenes where you've got to get the cables from point A to point B. But from a layman's terms, taking socket A and putting it to socket B's position takes an hour, but actually realistically it probably takes a full shift with the time that you've got to get the cables rerouted and down a new position, etc. So that's just an example that if you're walking the site with the client, then you can explain that at the time, and then it's up to them to challenge that. But really, they're not in a position to challenge it because you're the one that's went through the trade, and you're the expert in that particular field.
One of the other mismatches that I find is that is not necessarily understood by clients when they draft contracts, is that they'll set payment terms, 56 days, 30 days, 90 days, whatever it is. They don't seem to take into account the payment terms that the supplier has. For example, you may have to pay your guys on site weekly.
Yeah.
But you may have to wait 90 days for your payment from the client.
Yeah, actually, I had a conversation with one of your clients about this the other day. When I think I'd heard one of your other guests chatting about this, but when we tender a project, if we tender a project, we will look at it on paper and think, right, we've got a 40-week program here. There's maybe $1,000 in it, which means it's 2 guys for 40 weeks. And that's the way that you'll look at it. It's as simple as that. You're completely right. We pay our site operatives weekly. So then for a cash flow perspective on that project, you've got 2 guys for 40 weeks. So say £2,000 per week for 40 weeks. Inevitably in all contracts, for whatever reason, there's delays. The main contractor's held up, and actually we don't need the 2 guys for the first 6 weeks of that project. But what we do need is for week 18 to 24, we need 8 guys because it's going to peak. But what that does for me is rather than two grand a week for 40 weeks, I'm now paying 16 grand a week for 8 weeks. And you're trying to explain, because we are building services or we're M&E, we're always probably one of the last ones out. and the only one in after is usually the painter to touch up paint or whatever else. Main contractors are renowned as well for protecting their own position. Their usual war cry is, we're only a management contractor, we don't deliver any of the works, so we're only managing the works. So if we're in delay, it can't be our fault. But the thing is the poor M&E contractor, because they're usually last out, they're the ones that get the pressure piled on them. You need to have this done, this area needs to be done. If we don't hand over, you then start talking about liquidated damages. That's one of the things I would definitely look to change within the construction industry, because contractually it's usually overly onerous in favour of the main contractor. So when you start talking about damages and stuff, it could be quite an anxious time when you're coming to the end of a project. And usually the normal position specialist contractors and M&E contractors is, right, we just need to get the guys on it and get it done, because we don't want 20 or 30 grand a week damages getting apportioned to us. And whether you like it or not, whether they're just or not, that's another matter. They will try and apportion the damages to you. And then it's up to us to use guys like Joseph or Len Bunton to then go and try and fight them. And that's more cost and more time for us to try and fight daft delay costs that's been contra charged to your account. It's madness. I
think you've touched on a really, really important point about the resourcing and being at the end. As they say, Tal and Charlie, everything's got to speed up. Just get the guys on site. We want more guys on site. We want more guys on site.
Yep.
And it seems that they don't understand that it's going to it's going to affect your cash flow. You've got to suddenly pay for the extra resource on site short term. You're still waiting long term for your payment. But the other thing I've noticed is the more guys you've got on site, the more that your productivity goes down.
Yes.
So you're losing money straight away.
But that's another, that brings us on to another instance completely. So you're completely right. But the more guys on site you have, the more management you're going to need, which means it increases the prelim. But when it's amazing how offended main contractors get if you actually apply for an extension of time or put in a letter as per the contract terms to say this project is going to be delayed, we're going to apply for an extension of time, and we should be entitled to it along with our prelim costs, etc. Main contractors get so offended and start banging the table, but they're never slow to send you out a letter to say you've got us in delay, or you've got 7 days and we're going to supplement your labour. But the issue you've got as well, especially from a trade perspective, and I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people that will sympathise with this, but over the last 18 months, it's not as simple as just going out and getting an extra 8 bodies to put on your site, because they just simply aren't out there. There's so much work out there that the sort of the power changed from the company to the employee. So you had so much work out there that a guy could turn up on a Monday, get a phone call from an agency and be away to a different job on the Tuesday for an extra £1. So again, it just doesn't do anything with regards to being efficient or being actually beneficial for the project. When something's going to be delayed, again, there should probably be more collaboration with the main contractor and the supply chain to say, right, okay, we're delayed, we are where we are, it's fine, these things happen. But rather than you, main contractor, battering me over the head to say I need an extra 10 bodies on the job, it's not realistic and it's not going to happen. So how do we mitigate this, and how do we deliver this project to the end? And if that means moving the date, that's fine, but they'll obviously come back and say their client's not going to allow them to move the date, etc. But the construction industry in the last 18 months has changed with regards to labour cost increases, material cost increases, serious lack of talent and labour within the industry. Obviously, Brexit had a part to play in that. They lost quite a lot of people within the labour pool back to Eastern Europe, etc. But it really has been a trying time with regards to delivering projects in the last 18 months. And the things that you're mentioning really does put strain on a subcontractor or a specialist contractor, whatever you want to call them. And there could be a wee bit more sympathy from the main contracting industry with regards to that.
Do you think there's any scope for sharing the responsibility for the labour force, even if you're bringing the skilled labour, so they're mechanical engineers, plumbers, electricians, if there was a scope for that main contractor work? You mentioned collaborative. If they were more collaborative over, yes, come on, we're all in it together, we need the same outcome. We can support, if we can support, understand where you are with the labour, those challenges before the project, and maybe understand what actually it means when, you know, you start a project with estimated resource of X amount of gangs, say 5 gangs on a project, and then all of a sudden, what does that mean if we get to a point in the project where we need to double those gangs?
The projects that we do, they don't vary. It's a different shape of a building, but relatively they're pretty, I don't want to say straightforward, because it never quite works out like that, but it's not, everybody usually around the table when you're sitting at client meetings, etc., have all been there before, they've got plenty of experience, so there's no surprises. Everybody knows that if a project's delayed at that particular time, this is probably what's going to happen. That there is the point that everybody should be saying, right, look, this is, we can see this trend is going to happen, we can see there's going to be delay here, there's something's came underground that we weren't expecting, so it's going to halt that section of the project. They should be sitting there and saying, right, what effect is that going to have on the rest of the project and the rest of the programme? Let's come together and collaboratively pull a programme to completion, because usually what happens is the project's delayed, main contractor will then say, you need extra guys. We'll say, where's your latest construction programme? You'll never get the latest construction programme because they won't issue you one. What they'll try and do is they'll try and drip feed you with critical dates. But again, when you try to go back to a main contractor and say, right, well, okay, that's a change of circumstance because we didn't tender the job with that in mind. We tendered the job with, we've got a start date, we've got an end date, that's the scope of works, and we expect continuity all the way through it. When you get a delay and you're now telling us critical dates, that there was no way we could ever have been able to tender the project like that. So there's a cost element to that, and it's usually suffered by the specialist contractor, because again, when you're trying to go up the line, the main contractor will look at it in black and white and say, well, actually, there's 10 sockets to go in, you're still only fitting 10 sockets, so tell me where the change is. Well, the change is I'm moving a squad from the ground floor in room 1 to the first floor in room 21, which takes time, and it's not just quite as continuous as what you would like it to be or what you would expect it to be. I mean, these things happen. I mean, there's unexpected things, especially again when we go back through the last 18 months with material shortages, etc. We will tender for a job, we'll get a start date, and we'll get a completion date. You'll then have a procurement schedule where you think, right, I need to order that particular item on that date so that it gives me a delivery date 10 weeks later. But the industry in the last 18 months is, we were waiting in switchgear stuff for 14 months at one point for a part. We were waiting in a particular part from a well-known manufacturer for 14 months to complete one of your projects. And that you just can't compensate for that. You cannot plan for that. But again, when you go to a main contractor and they say, well, why was it not ordered on X date? And you're like, right, well, if I ordered it on X date, I would have to have took delivery on Y date, which means that you would have to have paid me, unless you're willing to do a vesting agreement, that you're not willing to pay me. So then I'm having to pay that out my cash flow and then sit with it in my stores for the next 6 months. That simply cannot happen.
How do you see the market going over the next 18 months? Is it getting better, or are you seeing more of the same?
I thought there was going to be a wee bit a slowing down of project awards, etc. I kind of have seen that. However, we're actively still winning work, etc. But I do see a change. As I said earlier, I see a change in the culture purely because I think that subcontractors are now getting a wee bit more clever and cuter when it comes to their contractual responsibilities. There's also some brilliant advice out there from people like Joseph, like Len Bunton, etc., that advise people, wait a minute, you don't have to do this. You've actually got rights, and you don't have to be bullied by a main contractor, because I think in the past that was very much the mentality. It was, we'll bang the table, we hold your money, you will do this or you won't get paid. Whereas I think everybody right down through the supply chain is now getting a lot more aware of their rights within the contractual terms and conditions. Plus, I think the industry as well there's a shift with it regards to, and I know that this is not the way, as a surveyor you'll probably cringe here, but it's very much a case of, if you're going to treat me like that, I'm just not going to do your work for you. It's as simple as that. And people then need to make a decision and think, right, okay, is this contractor a good contractor? Do they deliver a good product and a good job? And if they do, maybe we need to just treat them a bit better, because I notice it from my point of view. I mean, the beginning of this year, I've had most of our supply chain and having a chat with them, because, again, I hold my hands up with regards to payments could have been a bit quicker, etc., etc. But growing at the rate that we were growing at, it was a plate spinning exercise quite a lot of the time. So I think that the key for that is communication and trying to speak to the supply chain, and 9 times out of 10 people will understand. People just want to know when they're going to get paid. All right, if they're not going to get paid on the 30th of the month, if I'm going to get paid on the 7th of the month, that's fine, just as long as you stick to that. And that's kind of the conversations I've been having at the beginning of this year with people, because growing so fast, growing rapidly, sometimes we maybe lost sight of that a wee bit. But the supply chain, without the supply chain, no company will be able to function. And that goes right down to the one-man band that needs his wholesaler as his supply chain, right through to main contractors. And as I say, main contractors now, I think, are starting to understand that there's now been a shift in the knowledge, should we say, of the supply chain. So now maybe they need to start treating them a wee bit better. Plus, as I say, I think there is definitely a shift in the culture with regards to the next generation coming through. And I don't mean to say that's anything against the more experienced people, but I think definitely 20 years ago, it was very much I've just got to put a red pen through that, and they'll just accept it and it'll catch up with itself. That used to rile me. See the full, don't worry about it, will catch up with itself eventually nonsense. No, just pay me what I'm due just now. I'm not worried about when it catches up with itself, but if I'm just paid what I'm entitled to at the moment, everybody will be happy.
I always look at the analogy of cash flow is like blood flowing around your body. You need to get the oxygen around to the parts of the body, the organs in the body, at the right time in the right place. And similar with cash flow. And I think sometimes main contractors cut their nose off to spite their face when they hold payments back, because they're really holding back the capability of their supply chain for completing the project.
Touching a point there that I kind of spoke about earlier on with the catch-22, and it's main contractors starving the subcontractor the payments that they're due, and then it having a knock-on effect on their ability to pay down the line. All they're going to do is affect that person's or that company's ability to complete their job, and it's going to cause them issues eventually anyway. So I get the full philosophy of protect your business and protect the company, don't overpay, etc. But you do need to pay what is just and what has been earned for that particular period. Don't forget as well that when you're working for one of these main contractors, and you're right, if it's 56-day payment terms, by the time you're due paid, usually the contractor has carried out another full month's worth of work. So the chances of overpaying is very minimal anyway, unless it's your last payment and at the end of the job. So the full mentality of, oh, he's not done that amount of work up to the end of March, so I'm not going to pay him. Does it really matter if you pay an extra $5,000? Because the chances are they've got another £100,000 payment or £100,000 worth of work that they've done within the next period before their application is due anyway. So again, don't get me wrong, if you met the other side and you met the clients and had a walk around, that's a conversation you can have with them. And if you can build up that relationship where you can turn around and say, right, look, listen, I've got X amount of pounds in my cash flow this month, that's what I'm expecting. Can you certify that? Even if they were to turn around and say, well, we don't think you're due that, however, we may put some progress from this particular month into that to help you out. That's when you start building up that relationship. And that's when you start building up a relationship that maybe the subcontractor would go an extra mile for that main contractor. Because if there's been a willingness to work together, then you would go above and beyond to do certain items that you not ordinarily might not do in different instances.
Have you seen any particular areas in your business that has driven the incredible growth that you've seen in your business?
To be honest with you, I think the relationship that we've had with clients has definitely helped because, if we're brutally honest, we turned over £3.2 million last year. We then secured works up to, actually secured works up to 12 million for year 22-23. However, we only delivered £8.9 million within the 12-month period. If companies were doing their due diligence, we shouldn't have been getting projects at the £2 million when you've only turned over £3.2 million. But because you've built that relationship and that trust up with people to convince them that you can deliver the project, that certainly goes a long way helping. And don't get me wrong, we've had some great assistance. This isn't about slagging main contractors. We've got main contractors that actually have helped us incredibly. We're delivering a larger project at the moment where the main contractor has helped us purchase the plant and stuff, because at our size we wouldn't have got the credit limits to do that. So I really have to give credit when it's due that we do work with some fantastic contractors that do help in those instances, and hopefully that will flourish and let us nurture the relationship to move on to continuous work with them.
I'm glad you said that, actually, because it's quite easy to demonise main contractors, for example, or even main contractors to demonise subcontractors. But the idea is we want to collaborate and work together, and there are good contractors, main contractors out there that are seeing these issues, and like you say, a great example of supporting with the plant, you know, and I've seen that. Yeah, and on large procurement items, long lead items, you know, where the supply chain, the specialist subcontractor and the contractor have worked together to leverage delivery, you know, on a particular long lead item, which has worked really well, rather than passing the risk down the line saying, well, it's your problem. If it's not here on time, then it's your problem.
Yeah, I think everybody understands in that instance, though, that's a prime example that if that item doesn't come, then it's not just going to hurt the subcontractor, it's going to hurt the main contractor and their ability to finish the project in the time frames that they're looking. So I think in the instances that the collaboration is definitely required, but it does take communication. So it certainly took me to have a meeting with the management of the main contractor and saying, look, hands up here, we're a growing contractor, we might need your support, we can definitely deliver this job operationally for you and we can deliver the quality you're looking for. However, I might need some assistance on points A, B and C, and they were willing to help with that, and from my perspective that was a no-brainer for me, and it's now got me a £2.2 million job in my portfolio that will stand us in good stead for the next £2.2 million job, and now we'll hopefully be in a better position because we're 12 months down the line, our turnover is a lot larger, our credit limits have now increased because we've been able to demonstrate better accounts, etc. So it certainly we couldn't have got to where we've got to without definitely working with some decent people and some decent contractors.
You're a great example of the approach to collaboration, Billy, and you know, I wish you all the best in the business, and you've done it remarkably well. It's a great example of how you've managed to negotiate the scaling of your business under the circumstances of Brexit, COVID, you know, all of these things, and you've managed to do that, and I think it's an amazing example. I wish you really, really well in the future in terms of making your mark on the industry, and I'm sure you really will.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. As I say, it's I still get up, I still wake up early in the morning and look forward to coming in, and I'm really driven to succeed. And again, maybe some of that's bred through some failure in the past, but it's maybe bred through proving some people wrong, etc. But it's mainly bred through giving my children a life that I could only dream about. So no, I definitely I've got a focus, I've got an ambition, and I've definitely got a plan for where I want to take this. But it's not done overnight. People think that we can be spoken in the same breath as some established M&E companies that's of a larger size, but we've never had a millionaire behind us funding us. I've never had a capital venture firm behind me funding me. Everything I've done is from scratch. I actually borrowed my friend's car to go and do my first job. So, I mean, we've came through nothing, and we're slowly but surely getting there. We're nowhere near there yet, but as I say, we're on the right track.
Oh, Billy, let me ask you. So I'm sure the listeners will be intrigued to just find out a little bit more about you. How do you start your day?
Usually I train in the morning, so get up about 5:45 and training for about 6. Some cardio and then some weight training.
When are you most productive?
I would probably say mornings. I'd probably say, obviously, because you've trained, etc., your mind's alert, and I would say that I'm probably most productive in the mornings.
What's something new happening in your life right now?
I told you I just started this scale-up program last week, which is an eye-opener for, it's all based on team building, leadership, management, etc. It's been an eye-opener with regards to how you should be doing things. I actually sat last week thinking I'm doing everything wrong, but we're obviously not. But yeah, I'm going through I think I'm going through a sort of a evolution at the moment, trying to mold myself more into a business leader rather than just Billy the engineer, Billy for the tools.
What does adventure look like to you?
I would say it's just basically family times adventure for me, to be fair. I've got 5 kids, I've got 4 young girls. It's all 11 years old downwards, so that's quite an adventure. But I would say my family's my focus. Steins is an adventure. This building a business is an adventure, to be honest with you. But that's probably my two focuses in life, is my family and my business.
What thing would you love to do that might surprise your friends and family?
I did actually start learning to play the piano last year. That surprised a lot of folk because, again, I was fed up watching Netflix stuff, and it's something I've got a bucket list: playing the piano, guitar, learning Spanish fluently, etc. So there's quite a few culture things in there that people might be a wee bit surprised that somebody like me would want to do.
Name a challenge you overcame that changed your life.
Alcohol addiction. I basically stopped drinking about 4 years ago. Best thing that I've ever done. Basically set me on track with the business, and since then it's took off. But I've always had a bad relationship with alcohol since I was a young guy. Never drank every day or every week. It would usually be binge drinking. So when I went out on the Friday, I'd be still out on the Sunday, etc. There's probably a million people that's like that, but my life became a wee bit unmanageable with it, especially since when the first business failed, I kind of spiraled into a bad place for about 9 months, and woke up, brushed myself down, and decided to go on with it. But yeah, I would say overcoming that was probably changed my life, to be honest with you.
Who or what inspires and motivates you?
My children. They inspire me, they motivate me. As I say, I came from a modest upbringing, probably no different from millions of other people, but I wouldn't say we had a lot, but just trying to provide for them the type of life that you think they deserve is inspiring to me. I'd say my family, what motivates me and inspires me.
What does success mean to you?
Success to me is, again, it's going to sound really cheesy and corny and you get fed up listening to it, but success to me is providing a proper upbringing for my children, giving them a nice life, a nice environment to be brought up in, and try and give them the best start in life. I mean, my son, he's going to be a doctor. He qualifies in August to be a doctor, so I'm super proud of that. But again, that just shows we must be doing something right. But that would be what success looks to me. That, and obviously one day selling the business for millions of pounds. But as I say, the motivation behind that is definitely to provide a good foundation for my children.
The last question, Billy. What advice would you give your young self?
My younger years was a bit wild. The stories I could tell you would be another podcast, but I don't know if I would change much, because I think that everything that you do in your life and every path that you take and every challenge you face shapes you for the person that you become. So I would maybe tell my younger self to grow up a bit earlier, but I definitely don't know if I would change that much, because I think that you have to face the experiences to stand you in good stead for the person that you've got to become in the future.
Billy, you're an absolute inspiration, and it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
No bother, thank you.
You've been listening to Construction Cash Flow. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so you never miss an episode. And remember, the faster cash flows, the faster wealth grows.